Once today. Thank you all for everything. So number one is elected official budget request.
The first
Ms.
up,
Keys is the one that's telling people, the one that, not us.
I was trying to do a little spare, so I figured alphabetical order by the office. So, Rocky, if you would please.
All right,
If you want to follow along, if that's easier for you.
Oh, is this their figure? Is this, what's this?
That's
Is
what
that
I
just a-
had with like last year's expenditures and everything else. So Rocky's is, one of the paper copies that you received. Another one attached to that one. Yes, so it's that one.
and all the zeros. All right, Rocky. Looks like a bunch of zeros.
That's the wrong case. Yeah, but there's a lot of big numbers in front of them.
Oh, they weren't coming into focus.
I'm ready. Whoever, I'm ready. I don't know about the rest of them, but
What do you want me to, how do you want me to start? You want to go through?
whatever you want to do, Rocky.
Well,
You're up.
the salaries, you see, we had, the elected officials pay raises in there. The supplement, same as ever, The employee salaries, that is with an 8% increase. And that increase was on the ones that got the step grade. So that was their new, would be their new step plus the 8%. Bike is what it is. Retirement's what it is. That's what we figured there. The overtime, we've had quite a bit of overtime trying to get caught up this year with everything with IS World. We foresee still quite a bit of that. And we left extra help the same. We have not needed any yet, but we do foresee seeing a little bit of need help. Especially if we get moved to the new building, we may need some help when we get started rolling everything between the two buildings. We left the extra help the same in case we needed to. If we don't need it, we can move it to the overtime if we need more overtime. IS World is still not very good. We've got a lot more work to do there yet. So we're not comfortable with letting that number go without getting IS World completely implemented. The printing, we put up on printing because of whether we get in the new building, when we get in the new building. If we're gonna be in there before July, we've got to start having our printing with that, the labels, our return address going to the new building. We are going to have a mailroom there, correct? So that's why we have there. Travel, we left the same. It's going to be, we still have the travel, regular travel for everything. And I had to do a little extra travel this year and a little bit more because of being president of the association, the Assessor Association. The $300 posties, that was added because for our homestead, we had a policy where we've been sending them to them. We send it with a self-addressed stamped envelope, but we get those back. And that's the only reason that was put in there. Advertising, as you all know, the newspaper is ridiculous, but we have to put.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Remember that when you're writing this up, Jimmy.
On the advertising, I'll tell on your way there, that's how I feel about it. It's just a little too high. But we still have, even if we're not
Ridiculous.
advertising for jobs, we still have to put in there for our dates and, when the farm census ends, when the businesses have to be, and that's in code, we have to advertise that. Training, education, Put that up just 1,000 more because a lot of that, we need to get some others, you know. Again, we're back to IS World, where we're still training, we're trying to learn from all that. Dues and subscriptions, we left that at 1,000, and Christina can tell you a little more there. That's our books, the native book, well, JD Power books now. And the other magazines where we get the antique books and stuff like that. And Laura, I put on the contractual services commissioners too, but Laura can, we've had conversation in the past. With the implementation of Office of Tax Appeals, Rachel is graciously letting me use somebody when we have to go in front of Office of
I don't know
Tax
if it was
Appeals.
graciously or statutorily.
Well,
I was trying to be nice.
The thing is, though,
Thanks, everybody.
the cases that when we can handle ourselves, Rachel's, we have to have an attorney. So she's letting us use someone there. Then basically, we will be working with them on what we want them to represent us for. But on the cases where we may truly need some representation, rather than Rachel's people trying to learn all that, we would probably want to reach out to somebody else. And I know in the past, when I put contractual, you have said, we'll put it back in. If you need it, the commission pays that. But that was the reason that I added another 10,000 there this time, just in case we needed that. Which left our contractual services at 45.3. And then our record books, as you see, we have not spent much on all the supplies and materials first at 9,000. We've got a lot more stuff. This is the time of year that we're doing most of our order. And with the record books, that will come out now. That's when you start ordering.
In the spring, we get ready for tax year 24.
Yeah.
But you need to order it now to get it here for July for the pricing books and the different books. We get a whole directory of all businesses. We pay it out of the 406 fund. We have to order those things now in order to have it in-house for July.
Then capital outlay, the 15,000 there, that's for the equipment. We don't know what equipment we're gonna need in the new building and what's coming up. We did buy a new Lex Retriever, which has already been installed over there. So that will work for us, but that's why, you know, that's the concern we have there for the equipment.
Did they get it enclosed or is it still ceiling open?
No, they got it enclosed. It was really good.
Kenny's men are wonderful. They do a
Those
great
guys
job.
from.
Oh, yeah, he's,
Mhm.
yeah,
It
he's top
looks
notch.
really good.
He's top notch.
So we have, then they'll have to move all the others.
Going in back in his office.
Yeah, this way, this side, so we have that.
I mean, it's better than it was.
Yeah. All right. Questions?
Anybody have any questions of Mr. Morano? I do not.
Commissioner Treecroft?
Okay, I don't know my alphabet, so who's next?
It would be Circle Clerk.
Hey,
Yeah, the nice blue binder.
no, I've got it
I gave binders before, they told me not to do that.
right. But it's nothing. I'm gonna behave.
Yeah, no, you're not. You're okay to say that.
You done, Roy?
I'm done now. Yeah.
Look, he's even gonna stand
You shot
up.
at Joanne, you shot at Rachel, me and Robert, Donna, we're just kind of nervous.
Use your binder.
Hope your mom's watching.
As previous as that's.
That was, oh, Albert, that was bad.
Well, good afternoon. Budget time again, I guess, right? So just wanted to present our budget. I think you'll find it fairly simple. We're the smallest smallest department and probably the smallest budget, but not many changes from last year. You know, our most precious commodities are employees, in my opinion, and most important thing is to retain them.
Are
And
y'all listening?
and it's not even election season for me, and that's, so, you know,
Well, they know about you.
and obviously that would be the one thing, you know, that would be top priority for at least my office, and I'm sure the rest of the offices too. They have good employees as well. You know, we asked for an 8% pay increase, basically because, you know, PEIA insurance, there's potential of it going up. If you're following legislative issues, that's a big issue this year for public employees and potentially non-state employees as well. Also, inflation, I mean, that's nationwide, so food costs and energy costs, things like that go up. And we'd like to see our employees compensated for that so they can, you know, remain stable in their households at the very least. So, you know, the one thing that we're asking for is an 8% raise. Obviously, the elected officials got their raise last year. Been 8 years since we got our raise, and we definitely want the budget to reflect that. Turning to the salary thing there, there's only one note. It's pretty much the same. There's only a note in there. You'll see a line that says new hire. That's not necessarily a new hire. It's a replacement. I probably misspoke there when I put new hire. The new hire is a replacement for a deputy clerk that took another job with a state office. As I've, you know, communicated to you before, you know, we tend to lose a lot of our county employees to state offices, whether it's the state family court or probation or something to that effect. So again, we'd like to replace that person there.
That's a vacancy, in other words, right?
It's a vacancy, correct? Yeah, just a replacement, not a new hire. Like I said, I misspoke there. Our overtime budget, you know, we like to keep that the same. Overtime costs are exorbitant this year. We went from a old computer system to a new computer system, Courts Plus. It turns out that we have to go way back to try to bring a lot of restitution payments forward, potential bond payments that never made it to the people. A lot of time we send out the restitution and it comes back. So we got to try to locate those people. If we can't locate those people, we have to turn it over to the state treasurer's office. So that encompasses a lot of time that we don't have during our normal day. So we have to work a little overtime to do that. And, you know, we still intend to apply for grants as well, that's reimbursement most of the time. As you know, you did that in the past when you were the county clerk. So, but over time and with this new system, we got a lot of work to be done that we weren't aware that needed to be done early on. It kind of sprung us on its last minute. And some of it goes back to the 90s, hunting people down and trying to get them their bond monies back, restitution monies back, and so forth. So that will encompass our overtime as it has in the past, not to mention the courts work overtime. And when trials go late, my clerk has to stay late, you know, just can't pick up and go home at 4 o'clock. So. Again, extra help, we'd like to remain the same next year if we can. You know, the new system is good in ways and it's bad in ways. Before, you know, the people come in, they brought in handwritten stuff. And we were able to just put it in a file and send it to the court. Now, when they come in, pro se people, when they bring in handwritten stuff, we have to initiate a computer generated report because they can't do it. They don't have access to do it. They can't do it from a public service terminal. The clerks have to do it. So, you know, where it may have saved us some work, it also has added some work to us too. So And we're still getting used to it. It's early on. We just started February 21st. There's gonna be a big learning curve and a lot of things that we're not used to doing that we're gonna have to do. And some of the things we were used to doing, we're gonna learn that we don't need to do anymore. But, you know, we'd like to stay the same. In most of our budget items, printing, travel, we expect that to be the same. Training, expect that to be the same as well. Dues and subscriptions is just the certain clerks dues, the certain clerks association, it's $300. It hadn't changed the last few years. We expect that to be the same. Materials and supplies. Those materials and supplies, we're going to, not sure what we're into with the new system and what we're going to need, so I'd like to keep that the same as well. I know that we're going to have to buy different type of envelopes. We'll have to buy the window envelopes compared to the solid envelopes because it's now the forms are computer generated and not typed anymore. So in the future, we may have to buy some window envelopes instead of the just plain envelopes because we'll no longer be using typewriters to type addresses on them. They'll be printed out on printers, which we may have to buy a few new printers too. So again, I think I can manage with the current budget, just redirect some of the costs where we were fixing typewriters to buying a printer, you know. So if I'm requesting that you guys leave my budget the same, other than the 8% for the employees, and give me a chance to look and see for another year what this new Court Plus system does to our office, and if there's money to be spared, I will be glad to.
Take some of it off my hands.
Yeah, I'll be glad to refund,
Oh,
refund it back
okay,
to you
you're gonna
guys.
okay.
Yeah, at the end of the season, but I don't want to get in a situation where I need money and I don't have it, because like I said, it's gonna be a big transition that none of us are real familiar with yet, until we get into it. So-
Technology.
And again, new equipment, like to keep that the same again too. So, does anybody have any questions?
Sure, thank you. for
Thank
making
you,
it so
Albert.
easy for me.
Now
So, thank you. This is great.
you're thinking right, person. Lori does all my typing for me and a lot of my thinking for me sometimes. So, but anyway,
Or if you have any of that to spare, I'll take some of that.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Albert.
Mr. Spires?
Remind me about this.
Your math is correct. It's all right if I just stay where I am.
I don't have a problem with that.
How is alphabetical order Spires ahead of Matheny?
I have this
It's by
happen.
the office.
Sorry, office.
Oh, okay, I was so confused just now. I thought, man, we went from Moreno to S back to M.
Well, we started with Romana, then we went to Marin.
True.
So we already started on.
I just thought I'd change.
On
things
your
up for this
alphabet, we
meeting.
were wrong.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
I had that thought privately.
Okay.
She just made it public.
Okay. So prepared the budget proposals for the Harrison County Clerk and Voter Registration Department for fiscal year 2023-24. Attached copies for your review. I've also included some key points in my proposals below. So I tried to keep this very easy to understand, basically one page. So I'm requesting that all line items under contractual services, commodities, and capital outlay remain the same as the current fiscal year. I'm requesting an 8% increase for full-time employees. I arrived at this figure based on the Consumer Price Index you hear on the news all the time, called CPI, average for 2022. So that was the average of 2022 was 8%. Some months were way worse than that. Some months were not quite that bad, somewhere around 4 and 5%, but 8 was the average.
You gotta slow down for me.
So I think the thing I want to highlight about the 8%, it sounds like a huge number because it is a huge number, but inflation was huge. So normally we do COLA raises, cost of living adjustments. They're not a reward for the employee. They're not raises. They're simply to adjust for inflation. We typically ask for what we want. You all typically give us what is fair. So I think 8% is fair. I know it's a big number, and sadly, it's fair. So just keep that in mind. It's just a fair ask. It's not a reward. It's not a bonus. It's just keeping with horrible pace of inflation, so it's just fair. Third point, in reference to 109 line item, extra help, I'm requesting to increase this by 4,000 and 108 line item overtime to be increased by 2,000 to maintain top tier quality at the clerk's office. Even though it's 2023, we still have COVID related absences regularly. Most of the ladies in the office have kids and family members, and it's like, even that just seems like it still won't go away. So fortunately, we have folks that we keep on staff to make sure that we don't degrade services at all. Elections 413 budget, I'm requesting that all line items under contractual services, commodities, and capital outlay to remain the same as the current fiscal year. In reference to 103-02 line item, salary and wages, employees, I'm requesting to increase this by 2,000 in anticipation of increased expenses for the upcoming 2024 primary election. We plan on having some cities piggyback with us in the future. That's very, very likely to happen, if not set in stone. I'd also like to highlight that since becoming clerk, our office has had an unencumbered funds with a combined total of $229,691.52. So I fully intend to have unencumbered balances going forward. I know, we try and get this right so that I'm not giving you money back. But if there is money to be returned, as always, I will return it. Thanks.
Any questions?
Hearing none, I guess that is a no. Thank you, John.
Miss Rachel?
Is it me? You. All right, let me. I'm not gonna go there. Thank you, guys. I think I'm just a 2-page proposal for you all. Mine's pretty simple this year. I'm kind of echoing our circuit clerk here. I'm not actually asking for an increase in any line item. The only line item that I have asked for an increase in is to echo the rest of the constitutional officials, is the 8% cost of living increase based upon inflation. Every other line item, if it doesn't have to do with salary and the line items that go along with salary, nothing's changed. I'm basically just asking you all not to take any of my money at this point in time. I know that last year I did lose a little under $10,000. And we've managed to do just fine with that. And I think that we'll manage this budgetary year to do fine with what we lost last year. But I'm not sure that I can go into the next year if I do lose money. And that is because of the unknown with the e-filing. Whereas Albert said maybe they've lost some work and gained some work. The opposite's true for us. All we did was gain work with e-filing. And we gained a lot of work with e-filing. And that's a real stressor on my staff and my attorneys. We were used to doing everything by paper. And listen, we'll come into the 21st century, don't get me wrong, we'll get there. But in doing that, the extra work that encompasses it requires time. It requires time for felony assistants that are already maximizing their time when doing orders. It requires time for the attorneys to try to get these orders uploaded, make them pretty. You wouldn't believe that once you upload the darn things, they don't go in the format that they look like on your computer at first. They're all over the damn place and you got to try to get them pretty again. And it's not easy and it's time consuming. Our juvenile and abuse and neglect world, they now have to open everything for the clerk's office. That is not something that the clerk's office does. So the amount of work that has increased on my juvenile and abuse and neglect girls is immeasurable. I don't want this in the paper. I'm not sure that Leanne's gonna stay if I don't get her some help, you guys. And if we would lose Leanne, who's our juvenile assistant, I can't tell you what that would do to my office. He understands what happens in the juvenile. Yeah. He understands what happens behind closed doors in juvenile cases. It's an immeasurable amount of work. She's putting in 15 to 18 hours a day, and it's not fair. I can't keep asking her to do that. I'm trying to give her relief. I'm working really hard within the office to give her relief and provide duties to other people, other assistants. I'm having a real hard time doing it. I will say that in my salary line item, through some attrition, through people leaving to go to basically better paying jobs. Most of my people are happy, I will give them that. It's just when the FBI offers you more money, how do you say no? I do have extra money in there. I'm hoping that eventually, as long as nobody takes it, I can at least get a part-time person to help alleviate some of what's going on in that world over there. They have to scan every report that comes in. They have to open every file that now comes in, every truancy, every vape case, every sexual assault by a child, every abuse and neglect. They have to do it all. And my girls in felony world and misdemeanor world, they're trying, but the e-filing is not easy for our office. It's really not. It has actually added a lot to us, as opposed to taking stuff off our plate. And while we're happy to do it, I just need some understanding that now's not the time to take money from me, please. We might have to buy new scanners. If we are eventually looking to go paperless, I mean, these guys are gonna have to take computers with them into the courts now. That's not something we were used to doing. While we have some, you know how computers are, they've got like a 3 to 5 life year, if you're lucky anymore. So our laptops are gonna have to get replaced. These scanners that we're using at our desks, they're gonna have to get replaced.
So the computers that you got from COVID, they're going bad 2 years
No,
ago?
no, those,
Because you got everybody a computer during COVID.
a
Take home.
laptop, yeah, we have
Right.
laptops, yes. Some of those are old and some of those are new. I said they have about a 3 to 5 year lifespan. They're good, they're fine right now, but they are going to have to be replaced in the future. I need to, lost my train of thought. Oh, Patsy, you threw me off with your question.
You threw me off, Matt.
What's that?
You threw me off. When you said the computers are up, I said.
No, it's coming, is what I'm saying. These guys are going to have these, handle them every single day. I mean, there's wear and tear on these things that happen too. It's basically just an ask, please try to be mindful of the fact that it's kind of unknown territory that we're wading into in this next fiscal year with the e-filing system. I'm going to ask, other departments to take back what I don't believe the prosecutor's office should be doing, but that's kind of minimal. We've always done things for judges when they ask, or, for the clerk's office, but I mean, we're trying to figure that all out, so everybody's dealing with their own duties. And it's usually the judges that are putting it on us, not the clerks, trust me. It's not these guys, it's the judges saying, just do this. So if my budget could stay as it is, and if we could please consider leaving the money in my salary line item that's not being used yet, that's because I'm not trying to hand out money to people who are already here right now. I'm trying to acquire at least a part-time person, or I'm gonna have real problems in abuse and neglect world. I mean, real problems. And those problems in turn into countywide problems. She's actually invaluable. Her knowledge, what she does.
Kind of like you, I don't know how she does what she does.
And-
And has
and-
done it as long as she has.
Well, and she deals with every school in this county. She deals with every juvenile in this county. She deals with every officer when they have a question in this county. She deals with our juvenile home systems, Genesis. When these kids come for placement from Monroe County, they come to Harrison County because we have home sites for them, or we have a Genesis center. Every time something goes wrong with that kid in Monroe County, they call Leanne. And they call Leanne because she's got all the knowledge. While the rest of us have the knowledge, it is not what Leanne has. When I tell you she's invaluable, I mean it. And when I tell you she's at a rope's end, I also mean that. I gotta get her help, guys. And I think that we're getting really close in my budget, that I can maybe get part-time at least.
So you have an opening right now?
I don't have an opening. No,
When you get an opening, will you be able to put that person with Leanne?
no. My places are filled. I mean, our felony attorneys are the felony attorneys. They have to have time to work on murders and sexual assaults of adults and everything that's going on in that world. I only have 2 misdemeanor attorneys for 5 magistrates. And then I've got 2 abuse and neglect attorneys, which is
How
Samantha.
do other counties do it? Madam Prosecutor? They don't have nearly the staff you have.
What is it?
With the other counties not having nearly the staff you have.
They don't
how
also
do
have the
do it?
crime that Harrison County has. If you look at crime in Harrison County, and you hate to admit this out loud, we have a bad drug problem where our intersections combine. We have a lot of services in Harrison County. Marion County still drops their people off in Harrison County when they're a problem. They still drop them off here. We end up with other people's problems too. Not as bad as we used to, because our mission has taken a different role than it used to take. That was, love or hate the mission. That was a problem at one point in time. The services that they offered to anybody and everybody.
The bottom line is crime is worse in Harrison County than ever.
It's not better. Let me say that. It's not better. We're still in the throes of a drug problem. And with our drug problem comes abuse and neglects. And our abuse and neglects, we've talked about this before in front of this body. They have skyrocketed due to our drug problem. You can't be a drug addict and keep your kids if you're neglecting them. It doesn't work. We will come in, the state will come in and take those kids, and we'll try to help you as much as we can. But, you know, and then when you get those abuse and neglect petition filed, usually there's a criminal charge filed too. We have issues. I wouldn't say that we're doing terrible, but we're not getting any better, unfortunately. Would you think, Sheriff?
No,
And it's
there's
no fault of the law enforcement, or I don't think the prosecutor's office, it's just what's
there.
happening.
It's there.
society, there's a law.
It's society, and, so, go ahead.
Just to add to Rachel, what she said there just a few minutes ago, you know, I told you we were transitioning into the Courts Plus system, and for the first 2 weeks, we had technical support from the Supreme Court. And that
2
tech-
weeks, wow.
I'm sorry?
And it
2
wasn't even a
weeks.
full 2 weeks.
I said 2 weeks,
2
wow.
weeks, yeah, 2 weeks, yeah. Yeah, and we had technical support, and there was other counties that have already been through this, and other counties that are actually larger than us in population. And about the third day in, this technical support team said, wow, you guys are a busy circuit. And I said, yeah, we are, you know, and you know, and they're seeing everything. They're seeing not only the felonies and the abuse and neglect, they're seeing the guardianships, they're seeing the adoptions, thank you. They're seeing the adoptions, the divorces, the domestic violence and everything else. But they were somewhat surprised, even though we were a lower populated county than some of the other counties that were already implemented, that we were busier than they were. So just kind of,
Now, are they doing it all over the state, or are they just?
County by county.
yeah, and there's only about 8 counties left to do.
We were
And-
actually one of the last.
Yeah, we are one of the last, and I think that Mon County, Cabell County, Kanawha County, and maybe one other larger county, and then a few smaller counties are left.
Let me ask you this, Madam Prosecutor. At $20 an hour, 20 hours a week, it's $25,000. If we gave you $25,000 more dollars per day, it'll
I think
buffer.
I have 19. I think I have, I'm not asking for a huge take, or,
You have 19.
I think I have
Are you
19. If
are
I
you
go
messing
back-
with me? Because sometimes you tell me 19 and then, or not you. I'm told
Listen, I
19.
swear me and my
Okay,
assistant
so-
Kim went through it over and over. I think I
Okay,
have 19.
So if we give you then, make up the difference, you could hire somebody at 30 hours a week, and we would put in the extra 20, and then you have a 30-hour week person. Would that help?
And that would give them benefits, wouldn't it? Because that's the big draw.
Yeah, we can't have a part-time person with benefits. They cannot go over 1,020 hours. If they do, then we have to offer them.
So
I
1,000.
would like to
so-
offer them benefits. I think that's the draw, but you know, we're gonna take what we can get.
So 1,020 hours would give you 25 hours a week.
Roughly 20.
So would that help you?
If I can get somebody to come for that, it will help me. If the draw is to get somebody to do it for $25,000 or whatever, we can get that because they have benefits. I mean, I'm willing to work with it and see if I can get somebody without the benefits first, that'll stay
So if you jacked it up to $25 an hour, then
something.
that's more appealing, because we're not gonna use benefits, so maybe you can get somebody that's retired that wants to be great.
Yeah, it'd be very helpful.
Okay,
It would be
I'm
very
on
helpful.
board with you.
So,
Another thing, keep in mind, we have 11 municipalities, only one county has more, and that's Kanawha County.
no, I was gonna say, and we have very good law enforcement in Harrison County. They do their job. You know, I mean, they go out and they crack down on these people that are committing crimes in our county. So, I mean, we're busy because we have good law enforcement too. And I mean, that's a good thing.
It's a
So
ripple effect.
it's a ripple
If I'm
effect.
busy, you're busy, I was busy.
Yeah, it is. So those are my asks. Don't take my money. and
So
don't
with
forget
your, so with your
part-time.
19 so with your 19 and our 11, you got $30,000, which you won't even touch because you can't go over the 120 hours. And you'll manage that.
If you guys do not want me to do benefits, the first way I will certainly ask to put it out in the paper is part-time with no benefits, just an hourly wage, absolutely. If I get no bites on that, I'll have to come back and talk to you guys about that. That's all I can do, right? So, but yes, any help is appreciated at this point, guys, and I do. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Rachel.
Any questions for me again? Okay,
I
thank
do,
you.
but I'll talk to you later.
Sheriff, all your departments, for all your offices.
Please excuse my voice, got a little bit of a head thing going on here. It's on the downhill side.
I'm gonna say, you're standing back there.
Yeah, it's sinuses. It's definitely sinuses. won't say the C word. Thank you guys for the opportunity to present to you our budget needs out of the divisions of the sheriff's office. I think everybody got a packet that, as you can see, but I think the theme here today from all the constitutional officers is an 8% pay increase, and something that we've talked about, and I think that we're all congruent that we think that our staff deserves that. But you'll also see a request a little different when we come to law enforcement, that I've requested a 10% increase for the law enforcement civil service deputies. And the reason I historically do that, I think everybody knows, because they're not part of the pay bump system. And so, you know, it's hard for them if they don't get a little extra on the percentage or across the board, then they don't get those built-in bumps. So I think that that's a good gesture to them as well. And that's why I differed a little bit, and I explained that to all the constitutional officers before I asked that. And if we just go in order of the booklet that I provided, you'll see that the first page right behind my letter to you is a breakdown if the commission were to see fit to do the 8% pay increase for the civilian employees and the 10% for the law enforcement deputies. You can see the difference in the far right column, according to my math. And you know, as Patsy alluded earlier, sometimes our maths are just a little bit off, but I think that's very close to what you would see would be the difference if you would grant the request that's been asked. So I hope that's helpful. The first budget that I'd like to talk about is the first one that we come to is the process division. And you could, as you will see from years past, Joe Cavaccio, the Sheriff's Office Administrator, oversaw that division. Upon his retirement, we've asked Captain Scott Ladia to take on some new duties. And as part of that, you'll see that his request to me regarding this budget. Other than the 8% for the process division, you can see it's pretty well flat. He had asked, and I agree with him, that it's not a major problem, but he wanted to flip-flop a two, which longevity, since we lost a couple employees that had a lot of longevity, it brought that cost down. So he wanted to flip-flop 200 out of longevity and increase the rentals by 200, which would probably balance out. And other than that, I think that the request is pretty much flat, and you know, there's no additional wants in here, it's just to maintain. I did tack on, I think, I'm looking to make sure, the second paragraph in my letter to you, just a looking forward that right now the vehicles are adequate in process. They're all about the same year, same time frame. So at some point, those will all need replaced, and let's not hope that's all at once. And I don't foresee that this budget year, but I think there might want to be some thoughts about maybe a replacement plan every so many years to replace some going forward. Those vehicles, as I say, that are there now will outlast me, but that's just a suggestion for the future. I would entertain any questions on process budget if you have any. All right, next, that would bring us to security. Security is all right now. When I started originally talked about it and thought about it, I thought that we would be okay with adding additional security over the other building within the $425,000 that's provided by the vital services levy. But when I put pen to paper and I started writing that down, if we were granted the 8% increase, if that increase went to part-time security, as well as the 2 full-time there, as you can see on the letter that I gave to you, in order to put 2 additional guards at the front door of the new building, it's going to create probably another $87,000. And I'd ask Lord to maybe double check the math on that. I don't know if you had a chance, but it seems to me that that's what it's going to cost us above the current budget if we want to put 2 additional guards at the front door over there. And I left that out of my budget request because I wanted to hear back from you guys as to, you know, what you guys wanted to do over there. So anyway, with that, the only other real change would be As you can see in the first slide, we eliminated a full-time position. We went from 3 positions to 2 positions, which knocked that number down from the 151,000 and some change to 93 and some change. And I applied the leftover money down to extra help because that's what we pay the part-time guys out of. As security is today in the courthouse, I would request, the additional and bump that up to 265,000. And with those changes, that would take us to just about where we're at on the vital services levy, the 425,000 and some change to support that. And any questions on that?
I have none.
All right, that takes us to staging. As you can see in staging, again, we requested 8% for the staging deputies. I don't think that we made any other major changes. Of course, the wage change was reflected if the 8% was granted. And then all the other, the FICA, the retirement, overtime obviously goes up when we give increases. So those are all wage associated. If you'll see, there's a line there, extra help, and it's zero budgeted, and we've expended 6,000. If you remember back what we did, we had a full-time position, and I didn't feel, with COVID and we get less prisoners in, that it justified a full-time employee. So I felt to save in benefits and save in pay, we did an experiment filling that with a part-time employee. So far, that's worked out. I would like to have another year budgeted as is with that full-time position in the budget. And like everybody has said, I'm not gonna, whatever's left over, just spend it because it's there. That should be deobligated, go back in general county for the following year or things. I know we have a lot of expenses and we don't have the money that we once did. So, that's my commitment to you guys. But I would like to leave it as is, and then we'll just, we'll reevaluate that next budget year. If we can completely eliminate that position or eliminate full-time and keep it just part-time. Longevity would of course change, and other than that, staging would stay about the same. Any questions? Then. I think the next is my most simplest budget, and that's our home incarceration officer. What I will say is we budget pretty much just his salary items, and as you can see, there's some slight changes there. One would be he would be eligible if granted the 10% because he's a law enforcement deputy. That would change his FICA. Retirement expense went up a little bit, and I'll talk more about it in law enforcement, but the contributions for deputy sheriff now by state code went from 13% to 16% to their retirement. So that number would change by code. That's not anything that we have any control over. And then longevity and overtime. I will tell you that we work very close, with the commission and with community corrections. All of his uniform supplies, training, everything's paid out of the law enforcement budget, but there's some money in the home incarceration budget. We bought him a car out of that. His taser and body cams paid for out of home incarceration. So that's an easy budget. Any questions on that?
Robert,
Yes, sir.
why aren't we treating them like we do with the Board of Education
I'm sorry.
and community corrections or supporting that officer?
They do, 100%. They actually fund more than the Board of Education.
Okay, so you're getting reimbursement then 100% for
Yes,
that
sir.
guy? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it comes out of the different line item.
Yeah.
Correct.
Commissioner, that's why I mentioned about them buying the cruisers.
Yeah.
Because remember, the $60,000, the councils of Nutter Fork and Clarksburg understand that the $60,000 doesn't touch what the deputy cost. That's why they don't want to have a police officer of their own. So we're gonna have to negotiate with the Board of Education to get more money because we're dying at the vine because it's $119,000 for a deputy after you uniform them, cruiser them, benefit them, retirement them, and pay them. Which they're worth every penny, but the point is, the Board of Education is not giving us nearly what we need to compensate. That's why the other cities don't want it. they laugh at the 60,000.
If I could comment on that, I strongly disagree with the commissioner. You know, the children are citizens of Harrison County. To me, they're our greatest asset. And I think that we have an obligation to keep them safe. And the commissioner's a school teacher. You know, we have a PRO down there with him, keeping him safe as well. So I think it's a great investment that we split. If his numbers are correct, then that's about half of what it costs us for the deputy.
Right.
So if we're splitting that half, we get them 3 months out of the year. We get them out in the community at ball games. We get them at the sporting events. So I just can't, I can't think of any other place that this county commission could spend about $360,000 other than to put these 7 deputies in schools with the kids.
Oh, no,
That's just my.
you're 100% right. The point is the other councils are saying no to what we're doing, and we need help. And Board of Education has a $135 million budget, and they have the money to pay for the cruiser if they want actually to have the deputies in there. The safety of the children, I mean, our county has gotten so bad, as you said, we have a deputy in a grade school. That's how bad we're going backwards. So,
We have issues in our schools. We have real
Yeah.
issues in our schools.
so without a doubt, the sheriff is right. It's the greatest asset we have, but at the same time, the Board of Education has more means than anybody based on the way the taxes are set up, and they can help out, just like corrections did.
Well, and I like to think that the deputy in the grade school is proactive, not reactive. I don't know that we have that much problem in our elementary schools, but I think worldwide, when we see the police shootings, what happened out in Texas or whatever, I think a lot of that is proactive and not reactive. But hey, let's be proactive to avoid a mass casualty or anything that happens in schools. So that's just my thought, and while I'm sure that will be my plan to keep that and grow in that program, as long as the funding's available. Any other questions? Now we get to the tough one. I wish law enforcement was as easy as the other, but it's an ever-changing, world, and former Sheriff Brandon could back me if he wants to, but it's a very expensive, and as Commissioner Treecroft said, law enforcement is very expensive. When you're looking at $120,000 a year for the expenses of a deputy, it's just, that's what it costs. And, a lot of areas aren't as gracious as this commission, this sheriff's office, this county, and they're suffering for it. They can't get deputies. I'm proud to say we have 1 vacancy, and that's because we have good equipment, we have good government, we have good citizens, and these guys realize that. And we give them a good wage. However, when I was before you 2 years ago, I was proud to say that we were the highest paid local law enforcement in the state. Now we're about 3 or 4. Wetzel County pays their deputies more than we pay our deputies.
Got more money than we
They
do,
do,
too.
per cap. They do. They do.
I mean, yeah,
They do.
they have less people, but
And we'll take that into
They're
consideration, but we're able to recruit and retain. And a lot of that is based on the 119,000 we dumped into these guys and gals, and as Rachel has said, and Albert, I mean, it shows because you look at the paper and they're out there working. And, the city of Clarksburg is down X amount of officers, city of Bridgeport's down. One agency, another 4 is down to 1 guy and 1 guy in the academy. Shinston's down. So we picked that up. And no disrespect to my brothers in the state police, they do a wonderful job, but there's only so many of them here. And I know the figure a couple years ago, they handled less than 3% of all 911 calls in the county. So when everybody else is home and everybody else has vacancies, we're the last call. I mean, we've got to get there. And, so I hope you consider the 10% that I've asked for. It helps in a lot of areas. I know that may not be possible. And, I think that would come out to about 5,500 a piece for the deputies. State police were given $10,000 increase last year. I think they're getting 2,300 this year. So that's 12,000.
their insurance
whatever.
premiums are gonna go up.
Yeah, and that's a consideration, and that's a good consideration. So,
I mean,
and I know you guys
and
know
their
that. I know
share's
you guys
gonna go
will
up
like that.
Because they're state,
Right.
that's the problem there.
So it helps us, and, it helps us all when we have good qualified people and we can retain them. So everything in the salary wages will reflect, the 10% and the 8% for the civilian staff. If you look at overtime, subsections 1 through 10, if you remember what we did there, those are contracts, actually. Those are paid back dollar for dollar, so we don't budget any money for that. And then at the end of the year, we just put in the money that we billed for. So it's just it's simply just a pass
What
through.
goes in, goes out.
What goes in comes out, and the system.
What
and
goes
I
out
hope you
comes
guys
back
like-
in.
What's that?
What goes out comes back in.
Yeah, we don't make it, it doesn't make us or break us, and I'm not sure who came up with the idea how we did it. Maybe it was Laura, but I like it and I think it works, and I report every quarter to what's come in and we track it that way. It makes it nice, and I'll tell you, this Paycom is very nice because we can put drop downs for different events or different details that we use. And so at the end of the year, we can actually know what we're gonna reimburse for, what the guys are working, so it helps us track a lot, and I think this is a good plan, and I think it's worked out pretty good since we put it into place.
If I may ask you one
Yes.
question before I forget about that. So we bill them their time. Do we bill them for like the retirement, how the retirement's going up associated with those wages or the FICA? You know?
We don't bill them their hourly,
Okay,
so yeah,
I just thought of it with especially your retirement going
going
up.
up to the percentage, yeah.
So I just,
No, that's a good question, and it's something that we may want to look at going down the road. But what they're billed is just a regular hour, or would be their overtime. Next request was a little bump in travel. We, if you look at the numbers, the expenditures as of mid-year, travel and really travel and training, which is 214 to 221, they kind of run hand in hand. Because we don't send people we don't send them anywhere that there's not training. Such as a conference or, I can't imagine what else, but like our mental hygiene, transports, that comes out of travel. We do a lot of those, probably, 3 or 4 weeks, probably.
yeah.
And sometimes we're going to Huntington, sometimes we get halfway to Huntington. They
That's
send us up
something
to
that needs to
Fairmont.
be.
And they have set up that they passed a bill last legislature which requires DHHR to pay for that. So we've set up a system and we've billed 4 or 5 times and they keep sending the bills back to us. They're trying to me, my opinion is that they're making it so cumbersome that you'll quit sending the bills. But we're still sending the bills. Hopefully someday, I was hoping by this budget time, I could say, okay, we brought back in the money would go into general county as it should. Once we bill, we brought in X amount, but I gotta tell you, we brought in 0 to this point, and it's not for lack of trying. Chief Wainwright sends bills and he works on that vigorously, so hopefully someday they'll.
What are they saying the problem is that they're not?
One time it was a vendor number, one time it was the mileage category, so hopefully we're almost there, but I can say today we've not received any income back from it. And again, it's not from lack of trying, it's red tape and bureaucracy.
Are other departments getting paid?
Nobody's got it. I've talked to all the sheriffs and the sheriff's association. Nobody's
Nobody's got it.
they're all getting stonewalled. But I'll keep you guys up to date on that. It'd be good if we could bring in $20,000,
Every little bit
$30,000. It would help them, sure, absolutely. But anyway, we've asked for a little increase in there. If you look at the training and education, that 30,000 as it is now, that equates to about $500 per employee in law enforcement a year. If I've got 2 guys in the academy right now, upon their graduation, I'll have to pay $3,000 for their certification. So now you take $3,000 right off of that. Should the State Police Academy not be able to accommodate our guys and we send them up to Fairmont State, it's $5,000 to attend and then $1,500 for their certification. So if I would send 2 guys to Fairmont State, that would be half of my training budget for the year. Then it would knock the 500 down per employee down to 250. So we didn't ask for a big increase, but we'd like to see that bumped up just a little bit. And I think we've asked for 38,000.
When they go, I'm just curious, when they go to the Academy of Fairmont, are they housed there?
Their house there, yes.
Okay.
And they're in their first class there. So as a whole, we don't know how that's going to pan out. We're kind of keeping an eye on it and see if that's a viable option, for our training needs. Because where you spend in one, then you're saving fuel, you're saving, the back and forth wear and tear on the vehicle. So I've just not balanced that out because I want to see how that academy pans out before we consider that an option for our new people. I think, professional services, that's kind of like our catch-all category. I think it's everybody. We're real close if you look at that number, but I'm not asking for an increase in there because what my thought process, when we go over to investigations, I've asked for an increase in investigations of 5,000. The reason the professional services is so high, we'll get these projects, the new CAD Zerker record management system, the license plate readers that we have out. We get those in their grant when we get them, and we get grant money for those. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. But then 3 or 4 years after, once the license run out, and once the maintenance costs run out of your grant, then you pick that up. So we throw all that in professional services. And what I would like to do is, I'd like to just pay for all that out of investigations. And some of it we pay for out of concealed weapons, asset forfeitures. But I would like to pay for the lion's share of that out of investigations. So I asked for a, the 6,000 increase in the investigations fund. And then capital outlay, new equipment, I mean, we're all right there. The last capital outlay equipment, that is for the tasers and body cams. Our contract is actually 98,000 a year, but we asked for 87 out of law enforcement because 4 of those are carved out of the process and 3 of them were paid for by community corrections. So we're good there. That's good for 5 years, that number. And I think I'm sure there'll be questions on that, but I think that's all I have to say about it, unless there's any questions. Next is the tax division budget, and again, that's an 8% increase. And as you'll see in the packet, I've attached the division chief's request, so you'll kind of see where they're coming from, as well as my thoughts. But basically, in tax, we've asked for a little increase other than in wages and associated line item in printing, materials and supply, and new equipment. The printing, and I think it was Rocky that mentioned it about the address changes. You can see that, if we change address, we need some stationery. There's also an increase in printing. Everything's going up, and we all know that. So you can see we asked for that. We also, we wanted to increase the new equipment because we're going to have some expenditures if and when we move across the street. For one example is the drawers there won't accept our, and I think I talked to Susan about it, they won't accept our cash drawers that we have now in the old, so we'll have to have new ones. It's not gonna be a huge expenditure, but it's gonna be an expenditure. It has to come from somewhere. And I think this budget's always been pretty much just, just enough to cover what we need. And I think we all know that if we really need something, we can come to you. And if it's reasonable and needed, that you guys will take that under consideration. But we would like to have that increase.
Remember we discussed if there's software that would take a cash drawer that would.
We did, and I asked Joni about that, and she didn't like that idea. And I'm not sure if it's a personal thing or if there was something that, that wouldn't work, but I do want to continue to look into that.
I think it'd make it easy to balance.
I thought so too. And did you say it was hooked on software systems?
I don't know, but
You
you
don't
guys
know
are,
software
you are software system.
Right, but she may have told me that it doesn't work, it doesn't interface with software, but I'll check that because, I like that idea too. But for some reason, she didn't think it would work, and like I say, I don't know if that's just personal preference, or, sometimes it's not necessarily with Johnny, but we all get, we've done it, we've done it this way.
Exactly. We don't want to change it.
Yeah.
CHA.
But now would be the time to change, it would be a very good change, so we'll follow up.
I'm just curious.
No, that's a good question. Any other questions on that? All right, well, thank you guys, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything they wanna? Anybody have any questions? I'm wondering here.
Yeah, I do. You want to work with everybody. I don't have the table rosters for everybody. I got them clerks, but not everybody.
Oh, the
mean the
breakdown of each
salaries.
employee
Yeah,
and their
yeah.
salary.
And put it, past, I need the total, back tax collection. Can you give me a graph on that for like, say, the past 7 years? So I can see what's coming in.
Past tax collection, you mean back taxes that
Yeah.
have been collected?
We'll see. And then I do want you to go ahead and put it in there, and we'll talk about it when we make the final decision. For the prosecuting attorney, go ahead and put in the extra $20,000 for the part-time person from us. And then that way she can pay them whatever a fair rate is, and I don't know.
Thank
I
you.
don't know.
I appreciate it.
I don't know if $20 is good, I don't know if $30 is good for what they do. I don't
That's
know.
him, he
I know.
said that, not the rest of them.
I know,
Just
I know, I know.
What's that?
I'm telling you. Appreciate
I
your
know.
thoughts, guys.
Well, what were you saying?
I said, that's you, and you're saying that.
Saying what?
David and I aren't saying anything, so.
We can't say anything because we're in a work session and I'm not approving it.
Oh, I'm not asking you to approve anything. I'm just telling you what I want the budget
But
to
I-
consider.
Okay. I'm not sure that was the way it was
No,
coming
that's,
across.
no.
I do understand. I really do.
Yeah, I can't promise you're getting.
I know
anything.
how this works. I understand.
It's not your first rodeo, right, Rachel?
It's not.
Yeah, right now you have one vote.
I understand. Yep.
And it
That's
takes-
not necessarily true.
Well, you're the one who spoke up.
I just wanted to make sure.
I'll wait in anticipation, guys. Don't worry.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna be honest with you, I have no intentions of adding any security to the new building. I've said that since day one. They don't have it at the DHHR, they don't have it at DMV, 9,000 people a day go inside Kroger's. There's no reason for that, but don't add any cost to that. And if you want to put it in the budget, then we'll vote on it. When we make the final decision. And then I want you, because you fall under us, only other thing I want the others to consider is you going from an M4 to a P4, which is where the other two administrators were prior to you. That's all I have, Madam President. For consideration.
Okay.
Madam President, I can say just a couple things. Sure. And I'm just, these are just follow-ups that I think we discussed in the past, and I failed to bring up, just when I was on my budget presentation, dawned on me. Commissioner Treehouse said something, jogged my mind a little bit. One of the things you'd asked me to check into there a while back was the difference of our starting pay in the county
The
versus
state.
the state's county pay, starting pay. And I bring a clerk in, it's 33,041. And if the state brings somebody in, it's 43,000. So it's about a $10,000 difference, you know. And, you know, like I'd said in the past, if I can keep them for about 4 or 5 years, if they stay here, then they have their sick time build up and stuff like that, then we can be competitive, but only if they've been around for 4 or 5 years, you know. But if they're 5 years or less, and usually we can train them up in about 1.5 years, 2 years, then they're off to, you know, greener pastures, so to speak. Secondly, you know, when we were doing this transition, I mentioned to the county commission that the computer, that the Supreme Court was going to buy all the computer equipment for us in the clerk's office. And we were curious whether that was going to happen. That actually did happen. They bought all brand new computers for us. They brought all brand new scanners for us, and they bought 2 monitors for each clerk. So, or in each deputy clerk. So that was probably $100,000 worth of equipment that we have to the Supreme Court supplied for our office. So we should be good with computer equipment for the next several years. One of the things that I had agreed to was to let the Supreme Court IT office take care of any issues with those equipment. And that wasn't a problem because our IT office and the Supreme Court IT office have worked well in the past, and they continue to work well today, I can say. So let's hope that continues for the future. So those 2 things that we've discussed in the past, I just wanted to bring up the date on that, and I failed to do that during my presentation. I'm sorry.
That's all right. We'll forgive you this time. Thank you, Albert. Are we ready to go to number 2? Or are we already there?
We can go to number 2.
Unless you wanted to stay on number 1.
With the general county vital services budget, well, vital service, of course, will stay the same. Here is a copy of the revenues I have projected. And since the elected officials are here, with some of this, like, for example, sheriff's service of process, I have in there $30,000. Do you think there's any chance of an increase? Any of the things that the elected officials bring in revenue wise? Is there a chance of an increase in all of them that I would have missed?
The only thing's a possibility is that mental hygiene transport, but I wouldn't hold my breath on it right now.
And that would be minimal, correct? I just want to go, thank you. Rodney did give us his certification of values as plugging those in. The property taxes. Last year budgeted revenues was 15.3 million. And this year, with the numbers he gave me, it looks like it would be 17.9 million. So even though those numbers have gone up a little under $2 million, we still have the increased expenses that we have been talking about with the GSA. At this time, does the commissioners have any questions about the revenues?
No, I don't.
I also knocked down the unassigned fund balance, as you can see, from what we budgeted last year to what we budgeted this year, or this upcoming year. And the reason I did that is, last year with the budget, you know, we figured we'd have a 4.6 fund balance carryover for the new fiscal year. And we didn't. We had like 2 million, I think it was $2.1 million. And so then that's where we had to pull the money from the repayment of the 911 center and financial stabilization to make up for that difference. So with the way things have been going, the budgeted revenue that I project for right now would be 2.5.
Why more in building permits? The 10,000. Are we doing more? Do we anticipate more?
We have done more. That's one thing I did go in and look at what we budgeted for last year and what we have brought in. So there was an increase in that.
And rinses across community corrections, correct?
Correct. We had rents in the past, and that was from Parks and Rec for renting the facilities out there. So last year we took that away, but this year it comes back in because of community corrections.
We don't feel we're gonna earn as much interest.
The way the numbers are looking right now,
That's quite a bit of it.
since we're not carrying as much balance, that's what it looks like.
Royalties have picked up.
Royalties have picked up. And refunds, reimbursements from external sources, that is actually moved over into that line item for the reimbursement for the PRO officers, for the solid waste litter control officer, and everything I put in that, the refunds and reimbursements. you have any questions about the revenue sheet? I asked one. Commissioner Treecroft? Commissioner Hinkle? The only other thing that I'd like to get an idea from you guys, I know Commissioner Treecroft just gave me his, all in all, it's pretty much keeping everything the same. I mean, we're looking, of course, at the cost of living and everything, but across the board, we'll be trying to keep everything the same, correct?
Yes, that's my feeling. Other than the cost of living.
Yeah, cost of living, and then we also talked about, the GSA line item. We do have the $1 million for the payment, and then with running out of bond money, we have to, put some extra money in that line item because of the move and the things that are remaining to do.
That's another thing will be.
What's that, Dan?
I will have to put more money in the line item for the GSA.
What for?
Well, one, we have the $1 million payment, a little over $1 million, but, because we're running out of bond money.
Or just stop? What else is left?
Well, we're gonna have to pay for stuff for the move over there,
What are we gonna pay for?
the move, whether it's moving boxes, whether it's moving company, whether it's however. we
There's
get
no
it out
way
of
you're
there.
gonna move John's office. He's gonna move his office. We're gonna move his office. Just taking it, I mean, he's got all those books and
Well, where's that money?
and
gonna come from
cabinets.
after?
Well, we're gonna have to figure it out. This should have been done when we started this whole project, but it wasn't done, or not we.
I don't care how it goes so far. I'm not taking anything out of the general fund for it. Then whatever. the
Well,
bonds
we're
are,
gonna have to do
bonds.
something, Patsy. We got a building and we gotta go.
Well, you figure it out. So the $1 million
I mean,
doesn't cover it, what you're talking
Rocky's got how many electric? John has how many electric? You're gonna have to have Allegheny come in and tear those down and
It's very
take them
expensive
over there
to
and put them back together. I
It's
mean,
roughly $30,000 just for our office to move the electronics.
believe me, been there, done that. I know.
So it's
None of this was taken into consideration.
the $1 million for the.
Sorry,
payment,
guys.
And then like $1 million for the rest of the bills that will be coming due.
Like
and the
what?
move and everything like that. Well, so the furniture, we approved the payment for 412,000 today, but we're still holding back 10% from that. Which the bonds, the last numbers I got, it was a little over 500,000 left in the bond, so. We'll have to finish paying off the furniture, we'll have to pay the retainage that we have held for the contractors. I mean, there's just some things that we'll have to take into
Endless.
consideration and budget it. Commissioner Hinkle, do you have any input for me? Things. in the budget?
Yeah, but I gotta go through this.
That's what I'm saying. We're gonna have to digest all this. and Come back.
I mean, there's lots of areas that I think we need to look at. I mean, I want to get a breakdown on professional services. We're $490,000 budgeted. It's a lot of professional services. Don't know if you've got any inquiries in the insurance to
I've asked,
reduce the cost.
yes, I'm still working on that, to try to reduce this cost, see what our numbers will be for the next fiscal year.
Is our president sure giving us a new update on pricing?
Yes, sir. So the insurance bid that we had out to bid, we ended up canceling it because there were too many questions from too many different people. It seemed to be very confusing, whether it was the risk pool, whether it was some of the brokerage services here around the county. So unfortunately, we had to cancel that RFP.
So I say we put this back on for next week with our. I think we're coming back for the, power plant.
Well, we just make it there for the next kind of commission meeting, that way it gives us 2 weeks to look at it. Because really, this budget, it really is fiction, because we have no idea how much money we're gonna have to spend crossing Third Street.
But we gotta have a budget, so we gotta look at it and figure it out. And I'd rather have the work session before the meeting, so we can, if we're gonna move forward with the power plant, that we can take care of that prior to that discussion.
Date, you want me to figure that out afterwards?
Yeah, we'll talk.
Yeah, I know, I talked to Trey and he doesn't want to do Thursday because of St. Patrick's.
See, having a party.
He didn't invite us, but I got the impression that he,
Well, we can have it before the party. So
I asked him if
I didn't know
Tuesday was
we,
too
I didn't
soon,
know we,
worked around St. Patrick's Day.
What was his response to that?
He didn't have a problem with that. I could probably do Wednesday morning.
we'll talk. We'll figure that out.
Then are we ready to adjourn and?
Does anybody else have anything they want to bring before this meeting today about the budgets? Hearing none, I guess we can adjourn this work session. Motion to adjourn. Well, we can't really take action in this meeting, so I guess we just adjourn.